The world is talking a lot about sustainability, and in Templates for Change we really have a mind-shifting view about that. Not that it's not an important consideration, but there's something beyond that.
Yeah, I have to say that I was in a conversation the other day. Exactly this thing came up, that we have, it's almost like language has become really abstract. And just take the word sustainability as an example. What do we all mean by it?
Yeah.
You know, you say sustainable, I say sustainable, but what do we actually mean by it? It's actually, because we don't know. And I think these things need defining. And I think in Templates for Change, that's something we can really start to do.
Well, I mean, this gives us a chance to say something about what we mean by a template.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about a person and their self, we're not talking about one fixed entity inside a person that is fixing one fixed world.
Yeah, yes, I know.
We're talking about an emergence of new levels of self and new perceptions about the world. So perhaps in our very simple template about the self, the first, second and third self, we're saying that everyone can probably see by now that there's something very wrong with the world, and that's the kind of language that gets used. But in the second self, which is much more about exploration and trying to see the bigger picture, we're seeing that the codes of practice of the human on the planet are not sustainable. And I guess that brings up the question, well, what would be the third part of that sequence?
That's right. So I can see that in the first self, the way it's coming out now, you would say, there is no sense of sustainability. I can use whatever I like, I can take whatever I like. It doesn't matter, there's no consequence, there's no short-term, there's no long-term view. It's a very short-term view about using the resources of the planet.
And of course we can look back to the 90s and the early 2000s and see that's pretty much how we thought. We all did that. So there's no guilt or shame in that, it's just the way we lived.
It was the way of it at the time. We didn't know the consequences at that time. But now we're living with the consequences.
We're living with a time of consequences, exactly.
But then if you went up to the second self, we talk about, we want to improve that. We want to help the planet. We want to be good custodians of the planet.
Yeah.
We need to conserve. We need to preserve, not to consume. So that would be the second self of sustainability. But what about the third self?
Well, I mean, this brings us to one of the fundamentals of Templates for Change, which is we're not just trying to balance ourselves against the past. We're not just trying to readdress the balances of what's gone wrong. We also sense, and I think this is no longer an oblique view, it's a very common view today, we sense that there's a new future that has a requirement of a different kind of thinking altogether. Science, psychology, so many fields of knowledge today are talking about a global consciousness. So we're talking about, in a sense, bringing what is the best of the past, and we have certainly learnt lessons and we're learning all the time about our interaction with each other and the planet. In fact, that's the human story. But we also need to keep an element of exploration towards what are the needs of the future. So in a sense, bringing the best of the past, a new future. We're looking at a third self-thinking, which is integrating.
Yes. So in a way, it's what the Native Americans used to do, which is think 7 generations ahead.
Well, I think that really, if I can just recap, that really lays out a very simple template, which of course we have spent probably more than 30 years exploring, is that the challenges we face in the world can't be really addressed from the level of the first self. It has to be addressed by the emergence of a more conscious world human. Well, thanks, Claire. It's been very good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.